All right, so welcome everyone to the Teaching Online class. My name is Professor Latoya Hardman, and I have taught online, I guess, for the past couple of years. And this is just a quick session to kind of give you some tips that I found to be very useful. But before we get started, I would like to do a partner activity. So find a partner or a pair. And I need one of you facing the board, and I need the other of you to turn your back to your partner and to the board.
Can we sit down?
You can sit down.
Okay.
So I'm facing him, or
No.
am I facing this way?
Back to back.
Oh, back to back.
And you
Okay.
cannot look at the board. Oh, look, we have a good number.
All right.
Yeah, I think you have to partner with George.
Oh, we are partners. We didn't know we had to be right.
Okay, so the person whose back is to the board, I probably should have told you this first, needs a table and a piece of paper. And I put some paper in the middle. Who?
He's drawing, right? 'Cause his
Are you
back is
drawing?
to the board.
No, to this board, to the
Oh,
smart board.
gosh.
You're drawing.
Darn. I was hoping it was you, not me.
Okay, so who's drawing? George is drawing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a picture, and the person who is not drawing is going to describe the picture to the person drawing. The person who is doing the drawing cannot ask any questions. Okay, and I'm going to give you all about 5 minutes. Are you ready?
Yes. Do I have to draw a picture?
You have to just tell her, give her instructions so she can draw the
Can I
picture.
tell her what it is?
Yeah, you can tell her what it is.
So we're going to draw a
But it needs to look like this.
flower in a pot. Okay. So the base of the pot is, what is 1, 2, 3, 4 sides? What is 6 sides is a hex. What's 6 sides? A hexagon? I know. Is that what it's called? A hexagon?
Oh, let's say it is.
Yes. So draw a half of a hexagon at the bottom. That's the base of the plant. We got that? And then you're gonna draw a line right on the top of the hexagon. It's gonna be like the top part of the pot. And it'll go, it'll probably go a half an inch on each side.
And the leaf
And then you're gonna
is
draw
oval to a
upside
point.
down, smaller hexagon. So you would flip what you've already drawn,
And then the flower
and
has
you're gonna
6
make
points.
it, so it's like a pot, a flower pot.
Don't do hand
So
gestures.
essentially
Alright,
6.
then-
No, you just have to explain.
And they are just
6
two
points to the flower.
relatively thin
And then a small circle
leaves
in the
right in
center.
the middle of the pot. So, I would say they're probably the same size as the base of the pot. So
You
it's
done?
just your standard kind of coming out of the bottom of the pot. So, one up, down, the other.
Don't look just yet.
Okay. Right in the middle, there's a space for the flower, like the stem of the flower. That's gonna go up, probably a little, so if you're looking at where both of the leaves are parallel, take the stem up like one more, like a half of inch above that. Now you're gonna draw the actual flower, and it is just a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 point star. But it's pretty puffy, so imagine like a puffy 6 point star. It's not, there's tips at the top, pointy tips, and then, just kind of have like the fluffy, and then smack dab in the middle is a circle, and there we go.
All right. Now, there's a little bit of a.
Okay.
We can't talk.
No, are we done?
Yes, but don't look yet. We're going to wait on Pam
Here's
and,
the thing,
and
look, look
Jackie.
here. I actually started it and then it went up into that, so should I redraw it here?
I'm not supposed to look, right?
Are we done? Okay, so what I would like, what I would like for you to do is with your partner, look at their picture, and then together you look at the picture on the board.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Look at that.
Oh, I did pretty good.
Pretty good.
I actually started, I dropped down and drew this
Oh, yeah.
into this pot, so that shouldn't be there.
Okay,
Yes.
that's pretty good.
Perfect.
I could have made that.
Pretty
I
good.
didn't realize it was fatter.
I
thought
should
it
have
was
said
thin.
fat, I should have said fatter, that was my fault.
No, I couldn't imagine if the leaves were fat or skinny, so I thought spring skinny, I don't know why.
So let me ask this of the speakers first. What were the challenges in doing this?
Not being able to make eye contact and use gestures
Mhm.
and see if he was understanding what I was saying.
Okay.
By his expression.
What else?
I found the hardest thing that when I had said something and she drew it, and I needed her to do it differently, to get her to do it differently, because she had made a picture in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I would try to make corrections, the correction that I was saying didn't make sense
Okay.
to her the way I thought it would when I said it.
What about you, Dr. Thomas?
I think the hardest part was not being able to check to see if what you said was actually drawn.
Okay.
The way that you said it.
All right. And for the drawers, what was the challenging part?
Relating to what thick means.
Uh-huh.
Or go up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's kind of expressions like that.
All right. What about you, Mr. Sheldon?
You know, to translate what she's saying into basically my language.
Mm-hmm. And Ms. Nash?
Actually, he did such a great job because the way that you described it, you would say it's about half the size. So I dimensionally, I felt like I knew he did I think we came fairly close.
Okay.
But, I mean, the time pressure was the other issue.
Okay.
For me, like I felt like double pressure,
Okay.
and I couldn't ask a question.
And you couldn't ask
I
questions.
got confused between the word vase and pot.
Oh, so the vocabulary. Okay. So why do you think I had you do this?
To have that feeling of, I'm telling you to do something, but you're over here and you can't see me, you don't.
Right. This is what happens in an online environment, right? So as the instructor, we think we're giving directions, we think we are clear, and the student is not always receiving what it is that we're telling them. And then as the learner or the drawer, you can't ask questions, right? Or if you do, you might have to wait 5 or 6 hours before you can get a response. You don't know if what you're doing is exactly what the instructor is asking of you. So there's a lot of confusion. You don't know what they mean by write an essay, right? You need more details. And so in this case, the more details you gave, you felt that he was very elaborate, you were able to produce a better picture because he was very detailed in his instructions, right? And so that is actually perfect for what I want to talk to you all about today. So to get started, I'm going to give you this handout, and you can take notes on this if you want. Okay. Yep. Okay, so we'll just go through each of these. Some I will be more in depth with than others. But again, this is just to kind of get you started. I want to give you some tips and things that I have found to be effective. So we'll just kind of start at the top. And the first one is it's very important. Well, let me go back. Let me say this. Before I started teaching online, I thought that because I was good on a computer, it was going to be easy for me. Teaching online, in my opinion, is actually more challenging than teaching face-to-face. One reason for that is if I teach a Monday, Wednesday class at 9:30, if I arrive at 8:30 on campus, I have time to kind of tweak my lesson, right? Or go make copies that I didn't think of, or look for a video that I can use to supplement instruction. When I teach it online, I have to have everything for the week done maybe Sunday or Monday. Right? So I have to think ahead. It's also challenging because I can't communicate with my students in the same way that I can communicate face to face, right? I can't ask questions. We can't have discussions where they're learning from each other. So as the instructor, I have to do more to kind of fill in that gap, right? So it is not easy, and if you're doing it effectively, you're going to find that you're doing a lot more for your online classes than you're actually doing for your face-to-face classes, okay? So these are 6 or 7 8 things that I think will help you in designing your online classes. So the first one is, I feel it's important to establish very clear expectations and guidelines. And there are 3 things that I give my students in the very beginning of the semester. So let's just take these and kind of pass them around. Okay. So we need a red, a green, and a gray. Pam and Jackie, what color do you need? Red? You're redless. Okay, so the first one, in all of our course syllabi, we have policies and expectations, right? Well, those are very different for our online students. So these are just things that I include in my syllabus. So I have grammar expectations, don't use emoticons, don't use all caps, take pride in what you publish. These are things that I want in all of their documents. But at the bottom, this is something that I can't remember, but another instructor gave this to me when I first started teaching online. But it's the myths versus the facts of taking online classes, right? So a myth is that online classes are easier than face-to-face classes. Well, no, they're actually a lot more challenging because you have to teach the content to yourself. You're responsible for doing the readings and viewing the lessons and not having someone there. Online classes are shorter than face-to-face classes, right? They're not. So if you're taking a 16-week online class, you're still expected to do all of the work that would be done in a 16-week class. So this is also very good. And then the online course policies I actually got from the EDUC 1300 syllabus, the online syllabus. So student responsibilities, instructor responsibilities, what technology they need. Because some students don't think that they need technology to take an online course. So you need to establish those expectations very early on. On the last page, and I'll show you examples of all of this toward the end, one of the things that I do is a class chat, and I got this idea from Professor Jamroz, probably the second semester I was teaching, and it's an open space for students to ask questions of each other regarding the class. So if they have questions about an assignment, if they aren't really sure what's due this week and they don't want to ask the instructor, a lot of times we can be intimidating to our students, or they don't feel that they can ask a question. They can use this space to ask those questions of each other, okay? The other thing that I give is the red handout. And I got this from I really like this from the EDUC 1300 online course. And I especially like it because there's a rubric attached. And it's the discussion forum guidelines. And we'll talk about discussions in just a little bit, but these are very good guidelines. And I give that the first week. And the final thing that I give is the welcome to the course. And these are kind of my expectations. You'll notice that a lot of the information is redundant. And I do that on purpose. I want them to read certain things over and over again. For example, the class chat is also on this handout. So hopefully they realize, oh, the class chat is important, okay? That doesn't mean you won't have to reinforce. I had a student today post in the class chat, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here. So I just replied, this is an open space for you to communicate with your peers, okay? All right, so it's important to make sure that you establish those expectations early on. If you want them to use MLA or APA, all those things are things that you need to do in the very first week so that they know what the expectations are, so it's not a surprise to them later on, okay? All right. The next thing, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time here, is it's important to have a plan. So one of the things that I do, and I think it's very important so that we don't compromise the content, is if they are taking a 16-week course and they would be in class for, 3 hours a week, they need to get that same content online. It may be in a very different way, but they need to get that same content. I think too often when we teach online, we think, well, we can just throw one thing up, but then students begin to have they don't fully understand what it means to take an online class if we do that, right? They're not going to be prepared for the next class. We're not doing them a service by cutting everything short. So it's very important that we're putting up enough content. So what I do in D2L is I set up modules, and I'll show you this in just a second. So every week I have a module for the week. Okay, so that's kind of like my skeleton. Within that module, I have 4 submodules, and this could be, you might have 3 submodules, 2 submodules, whatever, but I have 4, and they're readings. That could be textbook readings, that could be newspaper articles that I put up, anything that they need to read for the week. And then I have discussions. Discussions are a big part of my course, and again, we'll talk about discussions in just a second. I have lessons. I have a tab for lessons. This is what you will learn this week. And then I have a tab for assignments, okay? The one thing, and let me log off and show you. The one thing that I can say about this is what I've noticed is if you're consistent, the students will feel more comfortable in your class. So every week, in the same order, I have readings, discussions, lessons, assignments. If I don't have a discussion for the week, I will put there is no discussion for this week. But I don't remove that submodule. I keep it very consistent, okay? So we will look at let's look at my 06 class, because that's the first one that comes up. Now, let me just say this. I was a little crazy over the break, and my entire 16-week course is already set up. So it normally would not look like this week 1. So at the very top, you see the class chat, and then under you have every week, and I also put the dates, okay? I do not open the weeks at the beginning of the semester. I open my weeks every Monday night at 8 o'clock. So that's why you see the dates here. So students should be able to see this, but they'll also see that these won't open until a certain date. And I do that for a reason. There's so much content, and I really want you to understand the content, that if you're jumping ahead, you're not participating in the discussion. If you're in week 6 and everyone is still in the week 2 discussion and you've already done it, you're not going to remember what's going on. So I kind of, I force them into the weeks at certain times. But if you click on the week 1 readings, discussions, lessons, assignments. Week 2 readings, discussions, lesson, assignments. It's the same thing every week, okay? And this keeps them on task. Does that make sense? Okay. The next thing that I do is I make sure that I have a checklist. So even though they know it's going to be readings, discussions, lessons, and assignments, I still put a checklist up that says, do this, but I do the checklist in the order that I want them to complete the tasks. So just because readings is first, you might not actually do the reading first. I might want you to do the discussion first, because I want the discussion to be an anticipation guide for the reading. Does that make sense? So the checklist tells them what order they should do everything in the course, okay? And again, if we look here, if you go to week 1, the very first thing is the checklist, right? And you can add a checklist. So please complete the task in the order that they appear, participate in the week 1 discussion, download, save, and study all of the week 1 readings, take the Getting Started quiz, register with Applia, and complete the introductory assignment. And I do this every week. So if you go to week 2, where's my checklist? Oh, my week 2 checklist is not there. There's my week 3 checklist, okay? So I put that up there for students to kind of keep them on task. Okay, so now let's talk about lessons and assignments. You have to give them. I don't think it's enough to tell them to read chapter 1. I don't think that's their lesson. We typically wouldn't do that in a face-to-face class, so we shouldn't be doing it for our online classes. There has to be some extra, and I think even more so in an online class, because a lot of times we know students read and they don't understand what they've just read. And because they can't ask you questions or they can't ask their peers questions, you need to give them a space to learn the content in a different way, okay? So, and then I always tie some sort of assignment to the lesson. These are several ways that you can do a lesson in an online class. One is our software called Capture. Capture is a recording program, right? So if I put a PowerPoint up, I won't just put the PowerPoint up. I record myself going through the PowerPoint, right? And students have told me that they appreciate that. So instead of them going through the PowerPoint on their own, I have it on my screen and I'm talking through the PowerPoint. You can choose to have it live where you're there, right? They can see you, or it can just be a voiceover, which is what I typically do, okay? Another program that we have through the college is called SoftChalk. And with SoftChalk, you can create interactive lessons. So you can have a slide that has information on nouns, but then you can include an activity. You can include a quiz. You can include a crossword puzzle. You can include a matching assignment, right? So you give the content, but then you also have activities to reinforce what it is that you've just taught them. Haiku Deck. Do y'all know Haiku Deck? Okay, so let me show you Haiku Deck. I think Professor Womack will really like this one because she does a lot of Peachy Pooches, right? You still do them? Okay. Okay, so with Haiku Deck, you can create presentations with images. It's very limited text that you use, but you start with an image. So if hi, come on in. So let's look at this one. So one that I've created was on personality types. You can come on. And so with this, they can kind of go through. So this is what an extrovert is. So what it's going to do, you pick a picture, and then you can just put text on top of it, but it's very limited, right? So this is just a quick overview of different personality types, but instead of going through a PowerPoint or giving them a long handout of notes, I've cut the notes into a short presentation where they have visuals attached to text, okay? So this is another option, and one thing that I've noticed with online, I try to change it up. So I won't do a PowerPoint every week. One week I'll do a PowerPoint, the next week I'll do a Capture, the next week I'll do a SoftChalk, then I'll do a Haiku Deck, because you don't want them, the structure of the class will be the same, but you don't want to bore them, right? You don't want them just to expect that you're going to do the same thing over and over again, okay? So this is a Haiku Deck. Another option is Prezi. Do y'all know Prezi? Right? Prezi is online presentation software that you can use. Zoom in, it has zoom in and zoom out features. You can add video, you can add pictures, you can add text, you can make it look fancy. So this is just another way that you can present your lesson. Okay, Easily. I want y'all to write this down. Easel.ly. I found this in preparation for one of my classes, and Easily helps you create infographics for free. They're completely free. So this is an Easily infographic. So this is something, if my students have read about what it means to teach online, I can then create this as the lesson for the week, and they can use this to review the content. Okay? So this is another tool. And it's it's fairly easy because I actually gave this as an option for my EDUC students online this semester for their course introduction. So I did an About Me. And you can download them as PDF files. So before I printed it, I downloaded it. So I wanted them to answer certain questions, and so what I did was I used an Easily to do that. And I gave them the website, and this was an option for them, right? So you can do any type of infographic. You can add pictures. You can add icons, but you have all of these, and so what I'll do is I'll find one that's appealing to me, like this one, and then you just go on and change the content. So you can turn it into anything that you want it to be. Okay? Okay, let me just go to the site since I'm here. The next one is EduCreations, which is actually an iPad app. I think it might be on Android as well. And with EduCreations, you can create short lessons. And then, what's my password?
It's, you gotta change that.
Oh. All right. So I'm writing with my finger. However, I did an easily.
Okay,
Oh.
so last week you all were.
Okay, let's turn that down a little bit. So,
On identifying types of sentences and independent and dependent clauses. So now I'm going to show you a quick way to actually make the different types of sentences and also hopefully clarify any questions you may have about clauses or the types of sentences.
I hate listening to myself.
So the first thing I'm going to do is start with something very simple. I'm going to start with 2-word sentences written by Stephen King in his book Cujo. So these are all very short, and if we look at them, we might say, well, they're not complete sentences, but actually they are.
Okay, and I'm going to fast forward.
The
So
what,
now I'm
and then the verb. Okay?
taking
You have to
notes.
be able to recognize clauses before, because.
So
followed
it's
by
just a
another.
quick way to take notes, and then I
And
think
there's
toward the
nothing wrong
end,
with
I start
that.
writing sentences. So I show them how to
I
construct
need
the
to now add
sentences,
comma.
and then I actually go through and write the sentences. And then it gives you a link, and you would just upload the link to D2L, and students can go watch the lesson. And this one is, I think, 7 minutes. So it's a quick hands-on way to teach them or show them what it is that you expect them to do, okay? So EduCreations, and then the last one, let me make sure there's not a link. There's Storybird. Have you heard of Storybird before? Okay. In a way, this is similar to Haiku Deck because it's you use images to tell a story. Okay, and your students, these are, I actually have some that my students created and shared with me. So, an example, one that I do all the time is the clauses. And so what you have artwork that you select, and then you just add the text, right? So I tell the story of Mr. and Mrs. Claus who get married. They have babies. One is independent. The other is dependent. Here's independent clause. So I just go through the lesson, and this is actually something that I would record. I wouldn't just put this up. So I would record myself going through this lesson, but then I would also provide the link so that they could view it on their own as well. Okay? Are there any questions about any of these? No? Okay.
Okay, maybe I have,
Okay.
so, I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
rather than 8 of us starting from scratch,
Mm-hmm.
how do we pool these things and make them available to each other?
That's a good question. And so what I would do, most of these things like this lesson here, some of my haiku decks, I do them for my face-to-face class, right? These are not things that I'm creating just for my online class. So I create them in my face-to-face classes, and then I'll record myself doing them. So I think if we can push ourselves to do this now in our face-to-face classes and then use them. But there is, I know with Education 1300, we have a space where everyone kind of puts ideas together. We have a tip as well where we can start, hey, I'm teaching a lesson on prepositions, let's upload it. And we can kind of pick the ones that we like and record over them. What do y'all think? Any other
But
ideas?
you couldn't upload this because you have to log on the website with your.
You can share it. So I can share this with you right now and you'll have access to it.
Okay.
Any other questions about this? Any other tools that I have not mentioned? Yes,
Like what she's talking about there, couldn't you just create a sandbox for it?
I could. But it would be, I think it would have to be course specific, right? You probably, well, maybe you could use this in your EDUC 1300 class because they need to know how to write a complete sentence, right? But I think it would have to be very content specific. So you would have to get together, I guess, with a couple of people who are interested in contributing to the sandbox. And I'm more than willing to share whatever I have. Okay. I was going to say something else. Oh, do any of you know of any other websites or software that can be used for lessons? Because I think this is one of the most important parts of the online classes. We've got to deliver the lesson. We can't just expect them to read out of the textbook.
So in my day job, you know, we have a digital solution,
Mm-hmm.
and they share that with us, and I'll share that with you.
Okay.
It's overwhelming, I'll be honest, but you know, every time we get together, we're always sharing our, and that's why most of these I'm familiar with.
You're familiar with. Mm-hmm. No others? Dr. Thomas, any that you? Oh, well, Flip Snacks is one.
Yeah, I haven't used that in a while.
Okay.
But yeah.
There's something called Flip Snacks, and you can take your files, turn them into PDF files, and it turns it into a flip book. That's just, I wouldn't do anything that had a lot of content on it, but I would do something very picture heavy and, you know, not a lot of text so that they can actually go through the book and get something out of it. So Flip Snacks is another one that I think is a good one.
There's some good TED Ed stuff too, you know, like
Yes.
TED Ed, some lessons that are already pre-built with questions.
With questions, yes. TED Ed is also another good one.
The Teach channel is also good.
I don't know the Teach channel.
I'll send you that.
Okay.
I think it's called Teach Channel or Teacher Channel. I can't remember exactly, but it might not be so strong in something you would use with students, but it's great to help you think of ideas.
Okay. Oh, speaking of that, one thing that I've also found, you can simply go to YouTube and find lessons on motivation, lessons on complex sentences, lessons on the quadratic formula. And a lot of times you'll find that people have already put them up. They're not always the most exciting, but that's another resource. My thing is that lessons module should never be empty. It should never be empty. And in some cases, you might want to put a lesson and then another lesson and another lesson just to make sure that they get it. So a lot of times I might create my own lesson and then I'll go look for a YouTube to put up for students who may need to see it again. But I do get positive feedback when I record my lessons. Students have told me that they really understand when I record myself going through a PowerPoint or writing a paper. I record myself going through. I model for them by recording. Okay? All right. And again, for everything, you need an assignment, right? Because students don't want to go through a lesson for nothing. So you have to attach some sort of assignment to the lesson or else they're not going to view the lesson. So even if it's only worth 25 points, I would strongly recommend that for every lesson you have some sort of assignment for them, a quiz, a survey, an essay, whatever it is, there needs to be an assignment. Okay, discussions. And that's your red paper. I give at least one discussion a week. And my rules are you must post first, and I set it up that way, where you cannot reply to your peers until you first posted. And you have to reply to 2 peers, unless I say I want 3 or 4. They don't have to submit the discussion as a attachment, but I do want, you know, sentences, meaningful sentences. I don't want you to just say, if you're replying, I like that. Okay, well, why do you like that? And this is why I really like this rubric, because if they are not very specific or their responses to their peers are not very meaningful, then I can kind of deduct points for that. And I tell them that this should be an easy grade and a way for them to really communicate with each other. And they do. They start to form a connection with their students, with their peers. Another thing about discussions is it's also a good idea if you as the instructor participate in the discussion. So if last semester I wanted my students to draw a picture, I drew the picture and took a picture of it and uploaded it and made fun of myself, and I participated in the discussions. If students say something very meaningful, I'll reply to it. I don't just make them participate in the discussion and grade it and they never hear from me. So this discussions are also a space for you as the instructor to get involved in that classroom dialogue. Okay? Any questions about discussions? At least one a week. There have been times when I will do 3 or 4 a week, depending on, when I first do my revising and editing, there are several activities I want them to do, and I have them do a discussion for every single one of them. Okay, but every week, oh, and this is the other thing about discussions. I will typically, in the past, I have just posed a question. But now what I do is, one source that I use is Soul Pancake. Do y'all know Soul Pancake? They have a writing tab, right? And you can go on there and get different writing prompts. I usually never post a discussion that doesn't have a reading or a video attached to it. I'm usually getting them to respond to something. Okay? Can you add anything about discussions?
Do you ever just say, discuss what your opinion is of something?
Sometimes I will. Sometimes I will. And a lot of times for my writing classes, my discussions are their pre-writing and they don't realize it. So I will give them a few of the writing prompts and let them go back and forth and discuss it. And I will tell them you can't use outside sources, but you can use comments from the discussion boards.
The only thing that I would add about discussions, and I do this in my online classes, is that I hold them. So I will not post, I will post the full lesson on Monday at 8. And I will hold the discussions until probably Wednesday or Thursday, just so that I don't get the student that comes in and tries to do everything in one sitting. So I use a very similar format that Professor Hardman does, but some of the things I'll break in chunks. So like I will present the lesson first, and then maybe I won't make the assignment available until Tuesday, just so that students are getting to have to frequently logging in, and then this discussion may not be available until Thursday, and you have until Sunday or Monday morning to get those posted, okay? Just so they can get in the habit of logging in, and so you don't get the one that comes in and writes, does everything in one sitting, and then is out until the following Monday, so.
And one of the things on the checklist, you can put, one item post to the discussion and then come back and say reply to your peers. Because sometimes if they do post too early, they will forget. So I might post on Tuesday and no one else in the class is posted. So I'll forget about it, right? When Sunday rolls around, I'll forget to go back because no one had posted when I posted. So you might want to remind them on the checklist to go back and see if anyone's posted. I've actually this semester told my students to once a week check the class chat, because sometimes students will post to the class chat and no one will answer them. And I'll answer them, but I really don't want that to be a space where I'm answering questions. I monitor it, but if I see that no one's replied to when is the essay due, I'll make sure that I reply to that. So this semester I changed that, so I remind students once a week, hey, check the class chat, see if your peers have any questions. Okay? All right. And supplement your instruction. So I said you need a lesson, but because this is online, you would hope that students who take online classes would just get the information naturally, but they don't, right? So you have to somehow supplement your instruction. So under lessons, a lot of things that I use to supplement instruction, I love commercials, right? I will find a commercial for anything that we're doing. So you post a commercial, and the commercial could be in the discussion. It could be, here's a lesson on motivation. The assignment is to watch this commercial and reply, do you see intrinsic or extrinsic motivation in this advertisement, right? Movie clips are also really good, and movieclips.com is a website. You can search a term or a movie. So if you go to movieclips.com and search parent-teacher conference, you will get movie clips that actually say parent-teacher. Someone in the movie is saying parent-teacher conference. Or you can search, old school or whatever movie that you want and see what clips they have. Okay?
Where do you find the ads in?
YouTube, or if I watch, usually YouTube. So if I watch television, I'll go search, or sometimes I'll search most inspiring commercials or funniest commercials 2014 or Super Bowl commercials 2014, right? Or
with YouTube, one of the things that has been helpful for me is anytime I see a video, so I'm typically logged in and will save it so that there are videos that I've used in the past that I can go back and revisit, or somebody may, Professor Hardman may say, hey, look, this is a really good video, and it may not I may not be able to use it now because I've already done that in my class, but I can save it. So like there's a really good Will Smith video that a lot of faculty members use for motivation. And you can just have your own kind of space of videos you save to YouTube. So when it's time to pull those back out and you put them in your class, you can.
Music, the assignment that I've used the past 2 semesters is what is the soundtrack of your life in 3 songs. And so they pick 3 songs to introduce themselves, and they pick specific lyrics from the song, and they explain why that lyric matches their life or tells their story. TV shows, you can find a lot of TV shows on YouTube. You can find full episodes of TV shows on YouTube. I think surveys, there's a survey function in D2L, or if you can find a survey on BuzzFeed or somewhere else, that's also a good way to supplement the instruction. TED Talks, right, or TED Ed, news articles, Soul Pancake, which I've already mentioned. BuzzFeed, Dr. Thomas has kind of introduced me to BuzzFeed. They have some very funny, they're not always funny, but very good lists of things. And so you can have your students add to that list or respond to that list or create their own BuzzFeed list. But those, I've started using BuzzFeed more and more in my classes, and the online classes seem to really appreciate those. Okay? And then I've already told you. Yes?
So I think one of the things that's really important when you use any of these forms
Oh, yes.
of media is that there's always some context provided.
Yes.
So if you were going to show something from BuzzFeed or from Soul Pancake or a video from movieclips.com, that there is some context either from your voice or written context so the students understand why you're showing that.
And I will even say, I'll show you, if I have an example, I'll show you, but even sometimes when I upload a file, I will add a description, which is my context, right? So I really don't just put things out there. Sometimes if you'll see a document out there that's not labeled, it's because in the lesson I've gone over what that document is. So it's always a good idea to give never put anything out there blindly. Let students know what it is they're getting themselves into before they click that button. Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Thomas. So we want to supplement, and we want to supplement a lot. Another good way to do this is, ask students what good video, what could I have used, right, to teach this? Or have them share songs, have them share commercials, have them share TV shows, and then you have those for next semester, right? Because they can make those connections, right, a lot easier than we can sometimes. So if you want to start building that, ask your students now when you teach a topic, what's a good TV show that I could use to really reinforce this point, okay? And the last thing is that it is important to post grades and communicate with your students regularly. As at one point I was interim department chair, and as lead faculty, the #1 student complaint that we get is that I emailed my instructor and I never heard anything back. Or I don't know what my grades are. And sometimes those complaints are valid and sometimes they're not. But it's very important that I have a time frame, and I'm very clear about what my time frame is in my syllabus. Let them know when they can expect to get work back. And so if they don't get it in that time, then maybe it's okay to shoot you an email and say, hey, did you get this assignment from me? And then just communicate with them regularly. Send a weekly email. Jennifer I'm attached to one of her classes, and on the second day, she sent a welcome email, and she told them how much she liked the things that they were already saying, and she praised them for taking the initiative to start working on their class so early. Our students need to hear that. They need to know that you're not just sitting behind a computer. So an email once or twice a week, ask them how they're doing, or your discussions are really good this week, or don't forget that there's an important lesson that you need to view. You need to communicate with them on a regular basis, okay? All right, so are there any questions? I know that was quick, but I know you wouldn't have computers and you're not necessarily setting up your classes, but what information can I help you with?
One question I have is you and Dr. Thomas both mentioned that you start your course at Monday at 8.
Mm-hmm.
Is that set by the university?
No. When do you post your class?
Midnight Monday.
Midnight Monday.
So it's Monday morning at 12
Right.
a.m. to the next.
And I used to do Sunday night, but I found that I needed to give myself more time. Yeah, it wrecks the weekend. So Monday morning when I come to work, I have time to finalize my class if I need to. And there have been times when I've had to email them, a few times where I've said, the assignment will be up tomorrow and I'll give you an extra day to work on it. So, but I try to, for the most part, every Monday at 8 o'clock, that gives me plenty of time to get it up.
You're talking 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
I'll do mine at 7.
7 p.m.
And then I give them a week, but I give them a little bit of fudge because they're due the following Monday at midnight.
Okay,
So they get one extra evening to do that.
right. I used to do that. Now I'm trying this semester. And the week will open Monday at 8, and all your assignments from the previous week are due Monday at 8, so that there's no overlap. So I'm going to try that this semester and see how that works. And the other thing I do, very quickly, when I set due dates, my rule is that you have 3 calendar days after that due date to get it submitted. So my drop boxes are all, I already set them up so that on that 3rd day or the 4th day, the drop box disappears. So when they, and I do that for grading purposes, because if you started grading and someone submits an assignment, you're not going to get an alert that they submitted it, so you'll forget about it. So I typically will not, and my students know this, I will not start grading until that 4th day after the assignment is due. That way I know all the assignments are there, and if you didn't get it in, it's because you missed the deadline. Okay, Jennifer?
One of the things I started doing last semester, and I thought it was very helpful, but my students loved it, is every week I would use my phone, my iPhone, and take a 2-minute, hey, welcome to week 2, this is what we're going to be talking about video. And I literally held it up here and took a goofy selfie of myself and put it online, and they loved it.
That's
And
a good
in my
idea.
evaluations, they said that was wonderful. It's just, this is what we're going to be talking about this week, remember this and this and this. It just, I felt like it brought a face to the class
Right.
that otherwise they wouldn't have had.
That's a very good idea. I could read my checklist every week. That might.
And they just loved it.
They do. They like anything where they hear your voice or they see your face or they can watch you do something. They enjoy that because they're taking online classes, but that doesn't mean that they don't want that human interaction. It just may mean that their job doesn't allow them to be here when we're offering the class.
My students mention that pretty frequently on their
Mhm.
emails. That's the thing that comes up over and
Yes.
over. She actually,
She's a person.
she actually recorded
Right.
this for us, or she, you know.
They love that. So Capture will be your friend, or your phone will be your friend, or EduCreations, recording yourself and going through the lessons. And I hate hearing myself, but they love it. And then they can go back. You know, so if they don't understand how I wrote that thesis statement, they can rewind it. It's always there for them. What else? What other questions?
I don't know if y'all went over this before I got here, but is the advising part of the assignment going to be any different this semester?
Oh, that's specific to a course. We'll talk about that in just a second. Anything else? Anything that you thought I would have covered that I didn't cover, that you want me to cover? No, Pam? Jackie? No?
I would throw in that the rubrics will be your best friend.
Oh, rubrics are your best friend, especially if you're going to, yeah,
It saves you
a ton.
hours and it allows you to communicate richly
Mm-hmm.
in ways. So like the one you have on your red thing, it takes a while to develop them.
Yes.
You have to work on developing them. But once you do,
They're there forever, too.
and so the students, you always know what you're looking for because it's right there. So then you can just put comments about, you know, briefly, but you don't keep saying the same thing over and over again to each person.
And I can't show this, but in, because they haven't turned anything in yet. In D2L, you also have the option to record your feedback. So you can type your feedback, but you can also record your feedback. And you can also do that in turnitin.com. You can record your feedback. So again, I might type something in the box, but then I'll record myself saying it just so they can hear me. Because a lot of times they won't read the comments.
Or when they read them with a different voice.
Yes.
That's what
Yes, or a different tone. Right. What else?
What do we do about the students that we don't see? I mean, other than emailing them, that was one of the things I ran into last semester,
Mhm.
ones that just don't show up, I don't know what's going on with them. I try to email them, I don't.
You can refer them to our early intervention and see if someone else can contact them. But unfortunately, I think that's kind of the pitfall of teaching online. We do lose a lot of students. And so hopefully, I feel like I've kept more students when I'm interacting a lot more with them. So hopefully that can help some retention.
Is anybody tracking the success rate versus face-to-face?
I don't know. I don't know. I know we can track it. I just don't know if anyone is doing it.
But what's the dropout rate? Is it
Oh, it's horrific.
comparable?
It's bad.
No, it's not comparable.
It's more online.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
like double.
I try to tell my students in my little welcome thing, that if you're the one who has to be reminded and has to look into somebody's eyes to remind you to do things,
This is not for you. Mm-hmm.
This is just, let's be straight up with that,
Right.
because that's what I saw last semester.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, we get a lot of students who think online equals easy. And some students sign up for that reason. And it's not, I can't say that it's terribly hard, but it does require a lot of discipline. You have to have good time management, and you have to be self-motivated, right? And if you're not those things, it's going to be very difficult to pass any online class. So no matter how easy the content is, it's difficult to teach yourself. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever, I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but did you ever use Skype or anything like that?
I have not used Skype, but I know instructors who will use Skype. And Capture also has a feature, I believe, where you can do a WebEx. And that is something that I've considered doing. That's another option for teaching a lesson. So you can tell your students to log in or sign in or call in at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, and you can record a lesson and maybe have some feedback.
Google Chat is much easier than Skype. Google Chat is so easy.
Google Chat
Or Google Hangouts.
or Google
The
Hangouts.
challenge with online classes is the asynchronistic nature of it.
Yeah.
Everybody's available at the
Right.
same time.
Right.
I found a program last semester called Bokaroo, which allowed them to record their own narrative for something and then capture the link and post the link into the discussion. So
Can you write that on the?
So for some of them that didn't have the technical skills to be
Mhm.
able to capture it with PowerPoint or anything like that, I wanted to hear their voice. So they were able to call in to this service and use this thing called Bokaroo, and it gives you a link where it captures your audio and
Oh.
you post it, and then people can hear it, which was really neat. I think I'm gonna do that earlier this
I like that.
Because we could hear other people.
Right.
Or we didn't hear them all year,
Mhm.
all the rest of the time.
Did you ever use VoiceThread?
I've never used VoiceThread.
I haven't tried in a while. When it first came out, I tried it, and it was too buggy. It was
that one where you took over your PowerPoint or not?
No,
You actually leave your voice. It's like a discussion with your voice.
it is.
And actually, it works really well. I know there were some issues with it. I don't know. Again, like you, I haven't
You
used
call
it in
it
a
on the
while.
phone,
Yes.
and it records you, and then everybody else can click on your name or your bubble and hear your
Oh,
comment.
okay.
But-
So let's see. Let's everyone say happy birthday. Well, is it somebody's birthday
Does it have
today?
a speaker that it'll pull from?
I-
So we'll find out.
We'll find out. Okay, what are we gonna say?
Happy birthday.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy, oh, wait. Okay, oh, happy birthday. Happy birthday.
That sounds like,
And I
Okay.
actually-
Oh, there was an error. Nothing was recorded. I don't think I have a microphone on here, but
Can you also give that a Voki, or what do you
A
say?
Voki.
Voki,
Yeah.
don't you, is that the
I
one?
use
or-
Voki.
I don't know.
Oh, Voki, okay, that's another one.
this is another one. This is Voki, where you can create an avatar and have them deliver a, oh, look, they have lesson plans.
it's very easy.
Oh, look at this. Let's do an ESL. What grade level? Let's do 12th grade. They don't have anything. Let's do,
Doesn't it say secondary?
let's see what this is.
Anybody can use it. You can use it for free. It'll only let you have like 30 seconds or 60 seconds, and you can't store any. You have to record every time. But if you're willing to buy subscribe to it,
I
then you
think
can
an
store
education
it
as a teacher,
and use longer.
and because it's public ed still, I think they would give you a little more,
Time.
well, it's
I
less
use it as
cost.
a non-welcome.
Oh,
You should capitalize any correct
okay, that's loud.
address. For example, Madam Bovary, pass me my handkerchief. Or, hey, pass me the sugar, President Obama.
So I wouldn't pick a dog to deliver that lesson, but you can pick different avatars, and I think you just type the text in, and it reads it. You get to pick the accent that you want.
Yeah, you
This-
can do a French accent.
You could do a French accent, French man, French
You can
woman.
also record your own voice and it'll lip sync to it.
Oh.
The character will lip sync to it.
That's another option.
I do a lot of screen captures and little tutorial videos
Mhm.
to help my students know how to do things. Like
Yes.
I wanted them to use Vocaroo, I actually used Jing, if y'all haven't used Jing.
Yeah.
And said, okay, this is how you do it, and then posted that video so that when they got to where I don't remember how to do it, they could watch the
Right,
video.
I do a lot of that as well. So how to fill out an essay map, or how to do a haiku deck, or I always do a video to show them how to do it. Mm-hmm. You can't put too much up. You can't give enough instruction. They're always going to need that. Anything else? Okay, well that's it. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you got something useful out of, that was pretty quick too, right? So I changed it to 4. You didn't get the, that's okay. But for those of you who aren't teaching online, what I do want to charge you with is try to do some of these things now in your face-to-face classes. And then, because you can still put up a PowerPoint for your face-to-face class and record it for students who are absent, or students who just need to see it again or to hear it again. So I encourage you to start doing that now with your face-to-face classes, and then you always have it for your online classes. All right, that's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh,